Hey everyone, I'm Paul Rabel, co-founder of the Premier Lacrosse League and player for Atlas Lacrosse Club. I'd like to first start off by wishing you each at home good health and well-being during these very challenging times. Last week, we announced the formation of the PLL Championship Series in lieu of our previously scheduled season. It is a fully quarantined, fanless tournament that will take all 7 lacrosse clubs into one location, kicking off play on July 25th and crowning a champion on August 9th. Today, we're welcoming our second ever college draft class to the PLL. This is going to be a 2-round college draft, and I'm going to send it over right now to Paul Burmeister and Ryan Boyle to get us started.
Thank you, Paul, and welcome to the 2020 PLL Drafts. I'm Paul Burmeister. On behalf of all my colleagues at NBC and the PLL, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy during this time. It's a time where we have all missed sports dearly, which is a huge reason why we are so grateful to have this hour here with you. First of all, there's nothing like a draft. You have the unknown of who goes where, and the excitement of dreams being realized, and that optimistic hope that your favorite team is improving with each and every pick. A year ago, a handful of rookies came up big. Tim Troutner, Ryder Garnsey, Connor Farrell, and Jack Rowlett all come to mind. 14 more get their PLL invitation tonight. We also have a tournament to discuss. Soon we'll be joined by PLL co-founders Mike and Paul Rabel. They will highlight the 2020 Championship Series powered by Ticketmaster that will take place later this summer in lieu of a full season due to the coronavirus. COVID-19, just like it has with every aspect of life, had a major impact on college lacrosse. The season was canceled shortly after it began, and that led to the NCAA granting an extra year of eligibility to seniors. And because a significant number of them will take advantage of that, our draft will consist of 2 rounds. It's important to note that coaches can take a risk on drafting a player who might choose to come back to school. In that scenario, the player would re-enter the draft pool next spring, and he's free to be drafted by any team. Time to welcome in our analysts for today's draft, Ryan Boyle. He is the Hall of Famer and also the brand new dad. He and his young family are right there in the epicenter in New York City. I'm happy to report they have remained safe and well this entire time. As for the talent pool in this class, Ryan, there's a clear-cut number 1. What makes Grant Amed that guy?
Yeah, he is a special player. You know, part of it is his athleticism, super quick, very slick. His IQ is off the charts, and his skill set. He's got really every pass, feed, and shot kind of at his disposal. You look at 2019, a record 96 assists. So expect him to fill that void they have at the X attack, that quarterback position. You know, they tried to draft Pat Spencer, that didn't work. Then they had Kevin Rice. He didn't really necessarily have the production. Cuccinello, they had a great year, but then they didn't protect him. He leaves for the Water Dogs. The Water Dogs pick him up. So, you know, maybe the 4th time's the charm here with Amed.
Amed clearly as the number 1 guy. You look at the other attackmen, midfielders, and also all the defensemen in this class. What do you see?
Yeah, the guys that jump off the charts offensively are Kosta Beal out of Notre Dame and Krause out of Virginia. If they don't go 2-3, I would expect them to be off the board. And then the guy to look out for is Matt Gaudet out of Yale, that classic crease attackman. You know, he fits a very specific need. He does have a little bit more range, but you're talking about a guy that won a national championship. This is a winner. This is a grinder. You know, Canadian, catches everything inside. So teams are going to look at him and say, can I slot him in based off my other personnel, and would he be a good fit there?
And finally, what about the team's chances to maybe add a starter or even a quality backup at faceoff and also goalie?
Yeah, you look at this tournament format, and it is going to put a premium on those 2 specialty positions for sure. And if you don't feel confident about really 2 guys, you know, you're going to have to look at this draft to build some depth. I look at the faceoff position, and Smith out of Marist is really the number 1 guy. Maybe he wouldn't have been drafted so high if it weren't for this tournament format. But if teams don't feel good about their starter and their backup, you know, expect to take him. And last year we saw Tim Troutner, you know, 4th-round draft pick, be a major contributor, a major reason why the Redwoods made the championship game. And this draft has got two really solid goalies, DeLuca and Washuda. And so, again, if a team doesn't feel like they are really solid at that position with their starter and or backup, they're going to have a keen eye on them. And, Paul, look out for some teams that maybe are solid with their goaltenders. You know, draft one of those 2 guys to have as trade bait.
Okay, Ryan, thank you very much. Let's get right to how the first round is going to work. The order will play out this way, and here are the whys behind the order. Selecting at number 1, we find the Archers. They beat the Atlas in the number 1 overall pick game in the playoffs last year, so that's why you see 1 and 2 there. The Water Dogs, that's the expansion team. They select 3rd. Chrome will go 4th. And then 5, 6, and 7, Chaos, Redwoods, and Whipsnakes, that's the order of performance of those 3 teams in the postseason last year, with the Whipsnakes obviously winning the championship, so they select at 7. Time now to say hello to all 7 of our head coaches. We begin with the champs. You recognize that man as the head coach of the champion Whipsnakes. They select at 7. Nat St. Laurent's Redwoods came oh so close to winning that title last year, 1 goal away, and the Redwoods pick at 6. Andy Towers, the 2019 PLL Coach of the Year. We have loved his entertainment in his front yard, rage ball with his son throughout this quarantine time. His Chaos selects at 5. Chris Bates, you'll see him right back here in a moment. For the 2nd year in a row, his Archers own the 1st overall pick. And we have 3 new faces in the PLL this year. Ben Rubior leads the Atlas, former 2-time All-American player at Virginia and also a professional player for the better part of a decade. Tim Sudan leads the Chrome, 2 decades of professional experience as a player and as a head coach. Andy Copeland, we got to know him very well in February with the expansion drafts. He is back to lead the 2 selections for the expansion Water Dogs. All right, Chris Bates is ready to make that number 1 pick. And Chris, before we get to that selection, it's been such a unique lead up to this draft with the unknown situation with who's coming out, who's staying, and of course with the shortened season. How have you navigated your way through this to get to this point?
Well, it's like you say, Paul, not knowing some of the 5th year guys, if guys were going to go back for their 5th year, we just had to do a kind of a deeper dive to figure those things out, and a lot of unknowns. But at the end of the day, when you have the number 1 pick and, some guys are coming out, you're in a pretty decent spot.
For the 2nd year in a row, the 1st pick is yours. Take it away.
All right. With the 1st pick, the Archers select Grant Amed from Penn State. Attackman.
As Ryan mentioned a little while ago, the NCAA single season leader in assists, also the Big Ten all-time leader in points. He's a wonderful talent. Any one of your 6 colleagues would love to have him. Does he fit a specific need for your team?
Well, he does. I think below goal line, we have an opportunity to insert there pretty quickly. So, Grant's he's got great skills. He's a winner. I think our guys are going to love to play with him. He's got a chance. So he fits a need, but I think he's got a chance to be really good. I think Will and Marcus are going to, enjoy playing with him. And then with Tom up top, it just gives us a real nice balance. So we're excited.
That was the 1st pick sponsored by Vineyard Vines. We bring back Ryan Boyle now. Ryan, it's no surprise, but now you can picture Will Manny and Marcus Holman playing with Grant Amed. Your first thought?
Yeah, it's going to be an electric attack, and really he couldn't be the better complement or better fit for what they're doing within that unit specifically. Manny and Holman on the left and right side are more primarily off-ball guys. Now you put Amen behind the cage, distributing the rock. He set the single-season collegiate record in 2019. And I think more importantly, you've got Schreiber up top, and now they've got that same kind of presence behind the cage. So that is going to put so much pressure on their opponents defensively. And Amen is very, very comfortable with the 2-man game. So the pairs offense the Archers run, he's going to have an opportunity to come in and just create tons of matchups problems and really put so much pressure on the opposing close defenders. Not many guys are going to be able to match up with his quickness.
And we are very pleased now to be joined by the number 1 overall pick of the 2020 PLL draft, Grant Amed out of Penn State. Hey, Grant, for those of us who will never be the number 1 overall pick at anything, tell us what this moment is like.
I mean, it's a dream come true for me. People joke about it, but I wrote in my 6th grade yearbook to play lacrosse at Penn State and then hopefully go pro. So, I did the Penn State thing, and it's really just exciting for me and my family to be able to just have this opportunity in general. And I'm very grateful for Paul and Mike and all those guys just to give me the opportunity to continue on with my career and hopefully, have success.
You're going to be playing right next to Will Manny and Marcus Holman, 2 of the faces of the league. Do you have a relationship with those 2 guys yet?
Yeah, those 2 have been phenomenal with me. They've just been really good and just kind of just being a soundboard for me in these uncharted territory. This is uncharted territory for me, and this is all new to me. So I've heard from a few guys, specifically on the archers, and it just means a lot to me to, you know, have a sounding board, and more importantly, just have teammates that already seem to have my back. And, you know, those things I think go a long way off the field, and I think it will hopefully carry on the field.
Hey, it's tough for everybody now to keep in shape and to keep their game sharp. What have you been doing to remain on top of your game when you're so limited now with what you can do?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a struggle in the beginning, just because, you know, when you're in college, you're on a specific weight program, you have access. I mean, Penn State, I have access to the best facilities in the country. And now I'm at home. So, I mean, I have some weights at home. Luckily, my house is on a hill, so I've been doing a lot of hill sprints, a lot of agility ladder, that kind of stuff.
How big is that hill behind your house, and how often are you running it?
Decent amount. You know, I've learned that, you know, I'm not a big long distance runner. That's not necessarily my thing. 10 to 20 yards, I'll do those sprints all day. But anything over a mile or two is not my friend. So, you know, it's definitely something that I've kept in the back of my mind. But I think I am at an advantage in that, you know, specifically coming off of the college season, everybody says, you know, you're in your best shape when you're in college. And I think, you know, that will probably benefit me down the line, being a younger buck, rather than, you know, some guys who are, you know, 10 years out of college, you know, trying to figure out how to go through these uncharted waters.
Are you saying the tournament's going to be tough on Paul Rabel?
I did not say that. Paul will be able to hang for himself. I imagine he could probably do kick my butt and all the workouts that I'm doing right now. So,
what kind of relationship do you have with Paul? Have you had much interaction with him?
So Paul and I actually, I started to get to know him at the Project 9 camp when I was in high school. I was in 10th grade when I first met him, and there's actually I have a picture of me and him. I've got long shaggy hair. That was back when he had his crazy long hair. You know, he's skies over me, still does. You know, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but, you know, he's definitely somebody who I definitely look up to. But more importantly, you know, he's a guy that I know that I can send a text to and I'll hear back, and he'll provide the correct advice for me moving forward. Paul, how we doing?
I'm now the
Doing
second
great.
most
How you doing,
important
man?
Paul. There we go. Yeah.
We're looking forward to not only watching you blossom as a pro for the next decade plus, but in the near term, I'm looking forward to playing against you, man. Congratulations.
Grant, this is your moment. Giant congratulations to you on being the #1 overall pick in this year's draft. From a 3-box to action on the field last year, Paul Rabel's Atlas, they added Rob Pennell in the entry draft earlier this spring. Coming up next, we'll see who they add via the 2nd overall pick.
Quick work of him that time.
What was the difference on that one between the other ones? That's speed, boy.
Trevor Baptiste is one of the brightest stars in the PLL. And then the Atlas, led by Ben Rubior, added another star, a major star in the entry draft when they got Rob Pennell at attack with the 3rd overall pick. Ben, I can see you're right there and ready. Let's hear the #2 overall selection.
The Atlas select Brian Costabile, midfielder from Notre Dame.
2019 ACC Player of the Year. Is he the coveted two-way midi that every coach in the PLL seems to want?
From watching this kid since the time he was in high school, I think he's one of the best athletes that I've seen coming up. He's a big, strong kid. He obviously, I think, has a shot that can kind of stretch a defense, but I also think he's a guy that can put some pressure on as a Dodger. And I think one thing that I'm really interested to see is kind of how he's willing to get back in the hole and play some defense. And, you know, knowing the kid and knowing his type of character, I think he'll do whatever it takes to help this team be successful.
The last full season he played back in 2019, Brian Costabile set a Notre Dame all-time record for goals by a midfielder.
Andy Copeland with the Water Dogs is up next with the 3rd overall pick. Andy, we did this back in February with the expansion draft, and you had 18 picks to make on that day. Less lifting today. You only get 2. It begins here at #3.
With our 1st round pick, we're going to take Michael Krause, attackman out of Virginia.
And Michael showed up big all 4 years at Virginia. Freshman year, ACC Player of the Year. Sophomore, led the team in scoring, and then a captain as a junior and a senior. How do you think his game will transition from the ACC to the PLL?
Yeah, I think he does everything well. I mean, I think he's tied for fourth in all-time points at the University of Virginia. I mean, he's one of 4 attackmen who has north of 100 goals and 100 assists, and that's with a shortened senior season. So he was an All-American as a freshman, sophomore, junior. Certainly would have been an All-American as a senior. I think that says something. Virginia is obviously, a very tradition-rich program, and Michael being a 2-year captain too, I think that tells you what kind of teammate and what kind of person he is.
And you always want your first-round picks to show up in big games in college. Michael Krause, 3 goals against Yale in the national title win a couple of seasons ago. Tim Sudan from Chrome is right there, ready to roll. I loved your pick of Jesse Bernhardt in the entry draft. He will help that team a whole lot. And your next chance to add here is at 4.
The Chrome Lacrosse Club picks Tom Rigney, Army defense.
I mentioned that you already have Jesse Bernhardt, and through another trade, you also bolstered the D. It's clearly been an off-season priority for you. What role do you see Tom playing?
Well, Tom's a big, strong guy, really good feet, communicates really well, so he's going to fit into our system very well. So he plays great team style defense, and he's kind of a big, imposing guy, and it's a matchup thing for him. So really excited to have him. He's team captain and, very well respected.
Okay, picks 2, 3, and 4 in the books. Let's go back to Ryan Boyle, presented by Sun Chlorella. What's your headline from what you just heard?
Well, we knew that Kosta Beal, Krause, and Amed were going 1, 2, 3 in some kind of order. And the fun was going to start with pick number 4. And so kind of true to form, I thought the Chrome was going to go either goalie or defense. Those are really the 2 specific areas of need for them. And so you look defensively, Coach Sudan really taking the sure thing here. Rigney's going to be available, big body, highlighted. And you talk about a program that just builds prototypical professional defensemen. Remember, Johnny Surdick got drafted last year. So Rigney, they're just looking at him as a guy that you can immediately plug and play. The only issue now for the Chrome is there going to be that goalie they want potentially kind of waiting in the wings in the next round?
Kosta Beal, number 2 to the Atlas, and Michael Krause, number 3 to the Water Dogs. You have a gut feeling on which one of these 2 players is better set to have success right away?
Yeah, and this is no knock on Krause by any stretch, but Kosta Beal is really the only other guy outside of Amed that had the entire full class come out. You can see as Kosta Beal as maybe being the only other guy as potential first rounder. So you look at him and his ability to slot right in to the Atlas and what they're doing offensively. This is a guy that is going to feast on matchups, and he's always gotten the long pole, and now this summer he might be potentially looking at a short stick matchup in some cases. Can dodge, can initiate, also has a lethal outside shot. So you kind of pair with him with a Pennell and Law, those creators behind the cage. He's going to be seeing a lot of golden opportunities this summer.
So Andy Towers is now in the selection on deck circle. He can have anyone not named Amed, Kosta Beal, Krause, or Rigney. The Chaos select next.
You should have slid again! You should have slid again!
Andy Towers told me when we talked last week that Jared Newman is the best on the planet at his position. And Andy, that's one of the reasons you're so enthusiastic about your team. You told me we don't have any glaring needs, but you get to add some talent here at number 5.
With the 5th pick in the 2020 PLL draft, Chaos Lacrosse Club selects Matt Gaudet from Yale.
A finishing machine at Yale his entire career. Plays the attack position a little different than a lot of the other attack players. Describe his style.
He finishes everything inside of 10 yards. I spoke extensively with Andy Shea, his college coach, as well as a couple of other people that have seen him play a ton. And the feedback was consistent with my evaluation of him. He gives us somebody that is an awesome goal scorer on the right side. He's as tough as you need him to be. He's going to handle everything inside. He's a lot more athletic than you would think based on the role that he played during his 4 years at Yale. And he's going to fit in perfectly with what we want to do scheme-wise to our offense alongside the other players on our team.
Andy Towers had a real offseason connection to Nat St. Laurent, the Nat you see there, right there on the screen, the head coach of the Redwoods. They made the trade happen that sent Miles Jones to the Redwoods. Nat, next piece of business, the 6th overall pick.
With the 6th overall pick, the Redwoods Lacrosse Club select Peyton Smith, face-off specialist from Marist College.
Connecting the dots here to your roster in the offseason, Greg Renlian at face-off retired. Is this someone you picture starting for you or competing for quality depth?
We certainly think he's going to compete for quality depth. We need to fill that void that Greg left, and lucky for us, Peyton will be working for Greg and working with Greg all summer long, so we felt that it was a great time to take him.
Okay, Greg knows him well. I know you do your homework. What's the best piece of intel that Greg gave you about the newest member of your team?
Greg's told us just he's a fierce competitor, and we love that here with the Redwoods. We like guys to compete. Between the work that he puts in and how he likes to compete, we're really going to look forward to that, helping our Redwoods make a push in this tournament.
Jim Stagnita, the head coach of the Whipsnakes, prioritized that part of his team with the way he protected his roster before the expansion draft. Jim, you have the final pick now, the first round.
With the final pick in the first round, the Whipstakes select Sean New, defenseman from Holy Cross.
The defense, which was terrific for you in your championship season last year, the entire group is still together, so how do you picture him fitting in?
He's just has a diverse skill set, that really kind of fits into, who we are as a team. So bringing someone like Sean in, who's an athlete, who we believe's best days are still ahead of him, has a great lacrosse IQ, can play both close defense and pole. We do need some more additional depth there, particularly in a tournament type format. We work and lean on Mike Earhart an awful lot. So Sean really gives us, fulfills a need that we have in the short term, and I think in the long term we have a really good one here.
First round now officially in the books. Let's get back to Ryan Boyle, presented by Sun Chlorella. Ryan, you and I talked a couple times in the offseason about how much Jim Stagnita valued his defense, and that really was the part of the team that made it go. Your feeling on him going defense in the first round now?
Well, I think it's kind of a situation where you want to build on that strength. Kind of the rich get richer. Coach Stagnita highlighted how he views positional flexibility and New's ability to go play both close and long pole and kind of spell guys at each of those positions is clearly something that, especially in a tournament format, he values.
I want to get you on one more of the picks there in the first round. Chaos at 5, going with Matt Gaudet. I got the feeling from talking to coaches here leading into the draft, they all liked him a little bit more as they got to know him even better. One of those situations where, hey, I've spent time with this guy, and the more time I spend with him, the more I think he can have success in this league. Your feelings about him going from the Ivy League to the PLL?
Yeah, I love Gaudet's game, and the guy's a proven winner. He's the most outstanding player of the championship weekend when Yale brought home that title. My only issue is, where does he get in on this chaos attack already loaded to begin with? And then you're going to be adding Curtis Dixon. So that's my only concern, is there enough playing time to go around? Because unlike some other players that maybe could float between attack and midfield, Gaudet is kind of that true crease attackman. Maybe Coach Towers has got a different role in mind. Maybe those conversations with Andy Shea out of Yale kind of lend some flexibility that we're not aware of. But that's my only concern with Gaudet is nothing to do with him from a talent perspective, but more just fit, and is there enough playing time to go around?
We have 7 more picks to get to, but first, we have a tournament to preview. 20 games in 16 days. When we return, it'll be all things the Championship Series powered by Ticketmaster from the 2 men who created it, Mike and Paul Rabel.
And here's Rabel. Behind the back pass, and they score! Rabel down the alley, the left hand free, he scores! And then McIntosh rolls on McMahon, and Adams fights it off. Ryder Garnsey all the way around, and he got it to go! Ah! You can't guard me! You guys need to switch right now! Rambo swims on Landis, gets topside, Rambo scores!
Matt Rambo's game-winning goal in his hometown of Philadelphia was the last piece of action we saw in the 2019 PLL season. Since then, we've had the expansion draft, the entry draft, and we now welcome you back to the 2020 PLL college draft. And before the coaches continue with their second round selections, we want to spend a little bit of time with the major announcement that Paul Rabel made last Wednesday on the Today Show. That's when he told all of us about the 2020 PLL Championship Series powered by Ticketmaster. It'll take place this summer from July 25th until August 9th. It consists of 20 games in 16 days, all taking place on NBC, NBCSN, or NBC Sports Gold. Week 1, each team will play 4 games, and they're all battling for the number 1 seed. Week 2, that's the playoffs, and the team that does earn the 1 seed, they have a bye. The other 6 will compete for the final 3 spots in the semifinals. It all leads to the championship game on NBC.
For more, it's now time to welcome in the co-founders of the PLL, Mike and Paul Rabel. Mike, let's start with you, and I'd love to have you take us behind the scenes of this process that came to the PLL's decision to have this championship series.
Thanks for having me on, Paul. It's a great question. So everything happened March 11th. We were in New York City. We were getting ready for our Families Foundation event. And WHO actually labeled what we were in the middle of as a global pandemic. And then we mapped out about 10 different scenarios. Most of them were actually postponing. And the last solution that we were thinking through, and the scenario we were thinking through, was frankly this quarantined environment. But it was always sort of the last one we were going to pay attention to. And then March 24th happened, and that's when the Olympics were postponed. And we realized there was some opportunistic real estate with our partners, NBC, that could be available for this scenario. And that's where we really started getting tactical and focusing on, okay, this seems like the best solution. The environment hasn't improved from a pandemic perspective. Let's make sure that first and foremost, we can provide a safe environment. And then secondly, get a semblance of a season out there. And the NBC Olympic windows seemed like a perfect opportunity to strike. And so that's really sort of the format that led to that decision.
Obviously, in that time, the main goal, or the number 1 goal in the field, is to crown a single champion. But Mike, what do you think the PLL can do for the sport of lacrosse as a whole by playing on NBC during those Olympic windows?
Yeah, for us, it's always been about bringing net new fans to the sport and into the PLL. And this gives us a great opportunity. The amount of exposure that we're going to get to see the best players in the world play consistently every single day is unprecedented. And it's something that I think with the current environment and the lack of professional sports and live sports that's been available, not only are lacrosse fans going to be satiated, but all sports fans. And so that's what we're really excited about, is introducing and bringing new fans to the sport, showing them why we're so excited about it, but also how innovative our broadcast is with NBC and the things that we've been doing, leading the way on the innovation and tech side that I think hopefully new fans will really be excited about.
The health and safety of everybody involved in this tournament is really of the utmost importance. What other steps are you guys taking to ensure that kind of safety, or the level of safety I know you want to have?
Well, the first step we took is that we established our own COVID-19 medical committee, and it started with our head doctor of the PLL, Catherine Logan, and then we brought on experts in internal medicine as well as disease infectious specialists. And what we have done is pronged out 3 phases. There's going to be an at-home phase prior to all participants traveling. There will be a phase on arrival that includes testing to ensure safety. And then we're also going to have a 3rd phase throughout the event. And then throughout the entirety of our tournament, we will make sure that we maintain health and safety tactics like wearing face masks, latex gloves. We're going to electrostatically clean the facilities and so on and so forth. So this is the most important thing for us, and it should be for all leagues, especially team sports leagues where you're talking about contact sports where you can't continue competition with social distancing.
And thinking about the PLL and fans, Paul, my mind goes to you. You've been so good about engaging with fans. I mean, for example, at my house, my son and his friends who play lacrosse, before they knew you, felt like they knew you because you engaged so well on social. So now for fans that can't be there, because no fans can be there at the tournament, how can you continue to engage with them? How can they feel connected during this tournament when they can't be there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Paul. So we're really excited about how we're going to be producing these games and broadcasting them across the NBC Sports family of networks. So what we've learned during this time, even watching late night television evolve in March to what the WWE's done, is that you do miss the crowd ambiance. And so there's technology companies out there that help create that fan experience and bring it to life, not only for our players when they're competing, and that could be amplified through speakers. There's a company called Tagboard that can present players or present fans on screen, like we saw even during the NFL draft behind Roger Goodell and that monitor. But we're going to level up our audio. We're going to really shift and engage where our cameras are located so that every fan at home when they're watching, they're actually feeling like they're on the field. And that's not too dissimilar from our strategy across social. And when we built this league, which was just now 2 years ago, we felt like social media and the new medium in and of itself was our core foundation for how we were going to present this sport to the masses. And if you look at baseball being a traditionally linear sport, capitalizing on print and radio back in the early 1900s, to the NFL captivating television, we believe the PLL is the sport of modern media, and that's starting with social. And we've been able to engage better than most leagues throughout this pandemic and look to take a lot of that kind of skilled production and nuance to the broadcast when you see it this July 25th to August 9th.
Paul, before I let you go, I want to tee you up here. A major announcement here recently about the PLL and how you're bringing sports betting into the fold. How's this going to work?
Yeah, it's something that we have been working on since our league's inception. As you can imagine, there's a lot of important governance that surrounds sports betting. But if you look at professional sports across the board, betting as well as fantasy is a large component of fan and consumption of sport. So we have been working not only with our head of strategy, Christian Henze, but Sarah Slane, who comes from the sports betting world, to lead our efforts, and are very pleased to have announced just this week that we will be offering sports betting to not only lacrosse fans, but hopefully, to Mike's point earlier, capture those net new fans of sports. So that will take this Olympic feel, as we've been addressing, to more of a feel of March Madness. And we think the combination of where we are in this silver lining and in a very challenging environment, matched with where we will be in July, is that there's going to be a lot of excitement, not just to watch lacrosse in a very condensed format every day across the NBC Sports family of network, but also engage and have some skin in the game. So more news on that to come, but I think that's one of the biggest pieces of this, and we're really excited to make that announcement.
I want to say thanks to both of you guys. I mean, since the start of this, you both have not only been good with sharing your time, but going a step beyond that and sharing insight and candor and really revealing a lot, being transparent. I've appreciated every step along the way, and especially here today as there's a lot of news to talk about. So good to see you both, and thanks for everything you told us.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us.
It's great to see you too, Paul. Thanks for all you do for the league.
Okay, let's get right to the action on the field now. To do that, we bring back in our analyst, Ryan Boyle. Ryan, 20 games in 16 days. That's a lot of action in a pretty small period of time. It puts a premium on what position?
I think from a two-way midfielder standpoint, the roster that's going to have most of those players at their disposal is certainly going to be set up for success, and kind of taking that one step further. If you have positional flexibility, those guys that can play both attack and midfield, somebody that can play both long stick and close defense, maybe a guy like Bernhardt that can kind of float between a short stick defensive midfielder and play offense. The more guys you have that can fill different, check different boxes, fill different voids, those teams are going to be best set up for success.
So that begs the question, which team's roster is best set up for success late July, early August?
Well, I think that's just one of the factors, Paul. I mean, if you look at the two-way midfielders, I love what the Redwoods have. If you look at that positional flexibility, the whips are certainly set up. That being said, you have to be very solid in net and at the face-off X. And I think if you look at the Archers, they played all last year with two face-off guys and two goalies. And so, when you look at all the other teams, if anybody kind of gets nicked up or things aren't going their way, if they don't have that solid second guy in place, there's certainly some trouble there. So I think obviously it's the whips kind of championship belt until you take it away from them. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Archers and Atlas really challenge more so than they did last year. And I like a lot of the things that Chrome has been doing this offseason as well.
If you had to pick one, though, and I know the Whips are the defending champs, but this is where the opinion comes in. You had to pick one as your favorite. Who is it?
Yeah, you're gonna put me in the spot here, Paul. I think you look at today, and the Archers pick up Amed, and he's clearly the number one player coming out. When they got knocked out, they had lost Schreiber. You kind of wonder what maybe would have happened had he not get nicked up or gotten injured in that game. So with a healthy Tom Schreiber and now a healthy Grant Amed, that kind of two-headed monster on offense, kind of already adding to what that team had defensively. They've got the two goalies. They got the two faceoff guys. That would be somebody that I would be on the lookout to potentially challenge the Whips next year.
Healthy Tom Schreiber plus Grant Amed, two things they didn't have in the tournament last year. Looks pretty good for Archers. It's now time to get back to the draft, and specifically, it's time to put the Water Dogs on the clock. They took Connor Kelly first in the expansion draft. They reveal their first pick of round 2 next.
And Whip Snakes with the ball in overtime. Snyder buries the winner. And Trenner from goal line extended. Takes a whack, gets the shot away, scores!
Lots of quality offense coming the way of Andy Copeland and the Water Dogs. You just saw Ryan Drenner and Drew Snyder. A lot of game winners for those two in season 1. They also added Michael Krause, a tackman from Virginia, in the first round. Andy Copeland is back. Second pick is yours.
With our second round pick, the Water Dogs Lacrosse Club, we're going to select Matt DeLuca, goalie out of the University of Delaware.
First thing that jumps out to me is he's 6'6". How much did that size have to do with your selection?
Certainly had something to do with it. I mean, I think more than anything, it was probably just a familiarity from my time in the CAA and having to compete against Matt. I think very highly of him. Certainly being 6'6", taking up all that room, forcing shooters to shoot to the edges. A lot of times they miss the cage as a result. But Matt's not just a big body. He's got really quick hands, throws a really good outlet, highly competitive, and he's been really a staple of a Delaware lacrosse for 4 years. I'm pretty excited about this one.
And Matt DeLuca led the CAA in saves per game both his sophomore and junior seasons. Up next, Chrome with the 9th overall selection. Tim Sudan went defense back in the first round, going to Army to find Tom Rigney. And now the second pick in the second round, Tim, is yours.
The Chrome Lacrosse Club picks Reese Eddy out of Boston University.
Long stick midi, a valued position in the PLL. What did you learn about watching that spot when you checked in and watched us there in season 1?
They handle the ball really well. I think Reese Eddy fits right in there. He can create transition. He's really smart on pass, pick down, staying in the offense and getting off when he needs to. Great off the ground and great off the wings.
Reese was also very good at disruption there for BU. 2019 set a school record for caused turnovers. As you can see, Ben Rubior is ready to roll with the 10th overall pick. Early in the first round, All-American midi out of Notre Dame, Brian Costabile. And now you can add to that with the third pick here in the second round.
The Atlas Lacrosse Club selects Aiden Hines, defenseman from Yale University.
I know all defensemen who play for Andy Shea at Yale are very tough. What else should we know about him?
This is a guy that started for 4 years. He comes from a family of defensemen. His older brother was a very good defenseman as well. This kid's a proven winner. He's a defenseman that I think, can do a little bit of everything. He can cover the ball. He can help be a quarterback back there and communicate. He can play off ball. I think he comes from good stock and great coaching, and we're excited to get him.
Chris Bates has had to wait a while since at number 1. He went with Grant Amed. And Chris, your next pick is here at 11.
With our second round pick, the Archers select Jack Rapine, Johns Hopkins defenseman.
Started all 48 games at Johns Hopkins. 6th all-time and caused turnovers there. What else did you notice when you watched him?
He's got good feet. He's a Philly kid, so I've tracked his career for a while here, and just think he's got a lot of upside.
Chris, thank you. Let's get right back down to Ryan Boyle, presented by Sun Chlorella. 4 picks into the second round. What comes to mind?
Well, everybody's loading up for Bear on defense here, Paul. 3 of the 4 selections, and with DeLuca, all 4 selections on the defensive half. The Atlas, I had Eddie kind of projected. I know Coach Rubior kind of had his eyes on him, so I'm sure he was a little bummed out that he got picked kind of right before that. And then you thought that maybe Washuda would go to Archers, and maybe the projected long-term kind of replacement for Adams and Gittleman, specifically Adams, who's getting kind of on the older side of things. So that was something that I thought might be a fit there, but Clearly, everybody with the second round is just trying to build as much defensive depth as possible.
We are getting close to the end as there are only 3 picks left to be made. The first belongs to Chaos. Is there a new member of the bomb squad on the way?
Behind the back feed, behind the back goal! Come on, Fields to Burn.
That pass looks good every single time. And who knows, maybe this summer, Connor Fields makes that behind the pass assist to Matt Gaudet, attackman out of Yale, who Andy Towers selected back with the 5th overall selection in round 1. Andy is back to make the 12th pick. The floor is yours.
With the 12th pick in the 2020 PLL draft, the Chaos Lacrosse Club selects from Cornell, Jeff Teat.
Okay, Andy, I expected to hear this name before because he's such a talented player and was so productive in the Ivy League, but I've heard he's most likely going back to play at Cornell this spring. Do you know something that we don't?
But he's not definitely going back. The due diligence that we've done suggests that there is a chance that he might not be going back to school, and frankly, somebody that's as talented as Jeff is worth the risk if it doesn't pan out. And if it does pan out, well then of course we got the steal of the draft. There's no question about it.
Bringing us to Nat St. Laurent with the Redwoods and the 13th overall selection. Back in the first, you got your face-off guys. Greg Renlian has retired. Peyton Smith face-off Marist. And now you're back here with the second to final pick here of this draft.
The Redwoods Lacrosse Club with this pick are going to select Chris Price, defenseman, long-stick midi from High Point University.
I hear you say LSM. I think about how much it hurt you to lose Brian Karalunas in the expansion draft. Is this a replacement for that move?
He's certainly going to give us some depth. You know, he's really tough. He's strong. He's got a great stick. He's got great speed and transition. And the last time we picked somebody from High Point with our last pick of a draft, it worked out pretty well for us.
Final pick of the draft belongs to the Whipsnakes and Jim Stagnita. Jim, you kept your entire defense together before the expansion draft. You selected defense with your first-round pick, Sean New, out of Holy Cross, and the final pick is now yours.
The Whips are taking Matt Hubler, midfielder, Johns Hopkins University.
At midfield, you have Mike Chanichuk. At attack, you have the MVP, Matt Rambo. What's this new addition going to play for you?
Well, Matt's he's more of a D-midi. I've had the luxury of watching him play for years. He played with my son at Hopkins, so I've watched him continue to develop. He fulfills a short-term tournament need for us, and long-term, certainly his best days, I think, are still ahead of him. And someone with a diverse skill set, a competitor, someone whose character and personality and family I know, and he's going to fit in really well in our locker room.
Okay, that's officially a wrap for the second round, Ryan. The obvious headline, the pick at 12 when Chaos went with Cornell attackman Jeff Teat. Your reaction when you heard Andy Towers make that pick?
Not surprised to hear Teat's name per se, but maybe from Coach Towers. I mean, this was a little bit of the kind of dirty little secret heading into this draft. Is speaking with multiple coaches, they said, look, I might just take a flyer on Teat. You know, if he comes out, you know, he is right there at the top of this board. So you look at kind of the risk-reward proposition. A lot of coaches say, I want a guy that I know that's going to be there. I want to build defensive depth. Meanwhile, Coach Towers, this is just a swing for the fences. Who knows if it works out?
Chaos offense was pretty good last year, Ryan. In the first round, they get Matt Gaudet from Yale. Second round, Jeff Teat, Cornell. We'll see if they're both playing this summer coming up July 25th. Okay, big picture here, not just this draft, Ryan, but the entire roster makeover season, the protecting of the roster for the expansion draft, the entry draft, and now the picks here in the college draft. What team do you think helped themselves the most?
Yeah, the team that really kind of jumps out to me is Chrome. You know, you look at them and the imbalance that they had last year. I mean, their offense was lights out. No issues on that end. Meanwhile, their defense is really kind of what let them down. They were in so many games. I mean, Paul, how many one-goal losses, you know, did we see this team suffer last year? Coach Sudan comes in and he just cleans house. And he just throws a ton of resources at the defensive side of the field. So you start with what they did in the entry draft. They get Bernhardt and Moss. I mean, this is a Team USA long pole. Moss, tough guy, has a backstory with Coach Sudan. They trade for James Barkley and Foster Huggins. So Barkley gives you a ton of flexibility, being able to play close and short stick D-midi. And then in this draft, adding two more guys to the defensive side of things. Rigney, and Eddie. So you're looking at a total overhaul for Chrome defensively. So if they're able to piece that together, if they're able to figure things out, watch out for them.
It's interesting how the team that's doing the most chasing, the Chrome prioritized defense with all their moves, like you pointed out, and the team at the top, the Whip Snakes, valued it with their protection of their roster. And also, you can see that Jim Stagnitas still valued it with the way he went about this draft in the first and second round. Ryan, good to talk to you as always. That's it for the 2020 PLL Draft. We are all looking forward to July 25th. That's when it begins. It being the 2020 Championship Series powered by Ticketmaster. You can see it all on NBC, NBCSN, and NBC Sports Gold.